Iran was very progressive in 1979. And we had free healthcare, we had free education all the way up to PhD, everything paid by the government. We had businessmen who were flourishing all over the country. They were doing business, trade everywhere. Mm-hmm. We had a respectful standing in the Middle East. Right. We were the only country that was sort of, we were competing with Europe.
Mm-hmm. And expansion of civil rights as well.
Doing that, yes.
Let me ask you a question, and we can go deeper into Reza Shah's son, the Shah of Iran, was overthrown, who largely expanded on his programs to westernize the country. I think Iran was estimated to be a top 5 economy at the rate it was growing within a couple decades, kind of reminiscent of like a Dubai of its day, except with more civil liberties. Why do you think that and here's an interesting parallel to today. So, as I'm sure you know, we have a lot of, in our academic system, in our institutions, we have these, this is where it stems from, this postmodern ideology starting off in places like France, largely in France and other parts of Europe, making their way into the American education system, basically neo-marxists. This is where you get the critical race theory from. This is where you get all these horrible ideas, intersectionality and all sorts of other, even worse than Marxist ideas. Those people, the intellectual class of Europe at the time, were vehemently against the Shah of Iran, both his father and the son who's overthrown. Even though these two guys were westernizing the country, taking back control over a Islamic clergy that was living in medieval times and had no respect for women and treated women essentially like animals, right?
Properties of men.
Where do you think that comes from? People like Foucault, who was, reminiscent of this. These postmodern intellectuals in these universities supported the clergy and the Ayatollah over the people in Iran, the Shahs of Iran, who were modernizing the country and expanding civil liberties. Where do you think that comes from?
Well, you are asking an Iranian, and I'm a historian. Mm-hmm. Europeans have always have treated Iran and anything outside Europe, especially in Asia, as colonialists. So to colonialists, especially the British and the French, Iran had no right to be smart enough and to be independent enough, to be so educated, to be prosperous, to prevent their colonial wishes in Iran. That's what they didn't want the Iranian people to be educated and to somebody who's patriotic about Iran to lead the country. We did not look at that we are becoming westernized. We looked at our own civilization, Iranian civilization, the civilization that we have even today. The young Iranians go by thousands. On November 29th is the Cyrus the Great Day in Iran. And all these thousands and thousands of young Iranians were born and raised during this regime of anti-Iranian regime that they say Cyrus the Great was never. The Jews has made that story up. He was never in existence. So this kind of culture that Iranian women are against, and all these people go there around his very modest tomb and chant and sing and walk around it, and they have chanted, Iran Vatanamos means is my motherland. Iran is my motherland. Cyrus is my leader. Mm-hmm. This is what these young Iranians today are saying, telling these people. Yes.
And this is an important thing because people don't understand. So you have Cyrus the Great, one of the most incredible and ahead of his time leaders in human history. Someone even our founding fathers looked up to was Cyrus the Great. Yes. Jefferson was a great admirer of his. I believe Washington was as well.
Yeah, 2 issues from his Proclamation of Human Rights, which is the copy is in British Museum. Mm-hmm. 2 issues was taken by Thomas Jefferson. Mm-hmm. One of them was freedom of worship. Number 2 is freedom of commerce. ownership.
Mhm.
Exact word
Property
is
rights.
freedom of ownership.
Mhm.
From in the United States Proclamation of Independence that
Mhm.
United States wrote. These two were there, and then it became a part of the Constitution.
Right. So property
and
rights and freedom to
property rights
worship,
and freedom,
which is basically
yes,
the foundation of society, is being able to be free
exactly,
in terms of what you can say and what you can worship, and being able to actually own property in order to preserve yourself and
exactly,
your family. Coming from
exactly.
Cyrus Gray of Iran, that's Persian history, and then the people in modern day Iran, especially Iran's one of the youngest countries in the world, so the young people, a lot of them are under 35, um, wanting to basically use that as their sort of cultural linchpin. This is our tradition. And then you have the Islamic regime in Iran who tries to undermine and destroy the Persian history because it's not Islamic, right? So that's kind of the battle, right?
Well, you see, one of the things that I have learned from studying history is that normally aggressors or people who occupy other people, they have a rule. The rule is, okay, once you occupy a nation or a country, you have to control the society, keep them under control.
Mhm.
The only way to keep them under control will be to destroy who they are. Like Arabs, first, they weren't only pushing Islam on all these lands they occupied. They destroyed the culture that those lands, countries had, and they forced their own language. So they took their language away because they did not have the language to read and learn about their own background, their own history, their own culture, their own civilization. This is a rule. I have really gone through all the lines, every occupation that every country has made throughout the history, and have come up with the same thing. Occupiers have the first thing they have done after occupying, they have taken the identity. I call it's like a birth certificate. They have taken the identity of the people from them, and then they have established their own culture or whatever they want on the people. Islam, Shiaism has tried time and again to destroy Iranian civilization. Time and again, they have tried. They have done everything they could. Even Khomeini, many times, Khomeini in his sort of interviews have said, well, so and such, talking about patriotism and like Iranian love and so on and so forth. There is no such thing. Islam comes first, second, and third. Iran doesn't matter. He kept saying that all the time. And they have done that to Iran. They have tried to do that in Iran. All of these hundreds of years that they have ruled with the support of the ruling, occupying people. So they are still trying to do that because when they see these young people go in thousands at 29th of every November, they prevented them. They blocked the roads. They threatened them, but they still go and they pray. They talk about good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Zoroastrianism. And they keep saying, you're nobody. This is my leader. And this is my motherland, they say. It's not yours. So the whole issue is that clergies in Iran have been trying to tell Iranians that you're nobody. Islam is the most important thing, and you have to obey what we say. And they have not been able, because this generation is not recognizing them.